Have you ever tossed a 1962 Lincoln penny into a jar without giving it a second thought? What if that tiny copper coin, the one that has been hiding in drawers, coffee cans, and old piggy banks for decades, could be worth far more than anyone around you realizes? Some rare Lincoln cents have stunned collectors by selling for extraordinary amounts, and certain era varieties have transformed ordinary-looking pennies into headline-making treasures. Before you spend another cent, take a closer look, because the next coin you hold could completely change the way you see pocket change forever. The 1962 Lincoln 1 cent was struck at the Denver Mint during a period when America was experiencing remarkable economic growth. Millions of these pennies entered circulation, buying candy, newspapers, and bus rides across the country. At first glance, there seems to be nothing extraordinary about them. Abraham Lincoln still appears proudly on the front, while the familiar wheat had already been replaced by the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. To most people, it is simply another old penny. But collectors know that appearances can be deceiving. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Not every 1962 penny left the mint in perfect condition. During production, dies wore down, machinery shifted, and tiny mistakes slipped through quality control. Those mistakes created coins that are dramatically different from the billions of ordinary cents still sitting in circulation today. And that difference is exactly what collectors are willing to pay for. Imagine opening an old family coin collection or searching through a forgotten jar in your garage. You spot a 1962 penny that looks unusually sharp. The lettering appears bold. The surfaces glow with original mint luster. Suddenly, what seemed like an ordinary afternoon becomes the beginning of an exciting treasure hunt. But don't celebrate just yet. The first feature experts examine is overall condition. Most 1962 pennies spent years passing from one hand to another. They became scratched, worn, stained, or damaged. A coin preserved in nearly flawless mint condition is dramatically rarer than one showing decades of circulation. Even the smallest marks can influence its desirability among serious collectors. Now here's a question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny under a magnifying glass? Probably never. Yet that's exactly what experienced collectors do because microscopic details often separate an average coin from one worth thousands. Some 1962 pennies display die cracks, die chips, off-center strikes, or striking abnormalities. Others may show doubling in specific design elements. These minting errors occurred accidentally during production, making each genuine example unique. The scarcer the error and the better the condition, the stronger the interest from advanced collectors competing for exceptional pieces. And here's something almost nobody expects. Sometimes the most valuable coin isn't the dirtiest one. Many people believe an old, dark penny must automatically be valuable. Ironically, collectors often prefer original surfaces that have never been cleaned or polished. Cleaning can permanently reduce a coin's value because it removes the natural finish created at the mint. That shiny penny you scrubbed years ago may actually be worth less than the untouched one sitting quietly beside it. Strange, isn't it? A little dirt can be worth more than a little soap. Stories like these continue to inspire collectors across America. Families rediscover forgotten collections inherited from grandparents. Estate sales reveal untouched albums that haven't been opened in decades. Coin roll hunters search thousands of bank-wrapped pennies hoping to uncover one remarkable discovery hiding among ordinary cents. That excitement keeps growing because every search carries the possibility of finding something truly extraordinary. Now let's address the number everyone wants to hear. You may encounter sensational headlines claiming a 1962 Lincoln penny could reach values approaching $762,000 or even millions of dollars. Those figures represent only the most extraordinary circumstances involving exceptionally rare combinations of elite preservation, unusual mint errors, unique characteristics, or historic collector demand. The overwhelming majority of 1962 pennies are worth only modest amounts, but the rare exceptions are exactly why collectors continue searching year after year. That's what makes this coin so fascinating. Nobody can identify an important rarity simply by glancing at it for 2 seconds. Every detail matters. The mint mark must be examined carefully. The strike quality deserves close attention. Any unusual doubling, off-center striking, die damage, or other authentic mint-made errors should be evaluated by knowledgeable experts. Even color classification can influence collector interest. Think about that for a moment. The smallest coin in your pocket could require the biggest inspection. If you believe you found an unusual example, resist the temptation to clean it, polish it, or carry it around showing everyone. Store it carefully in a protective holder and consider having it professionally authenticated and graded. Independent grading provides confidence for buyers and helps establish whether your discovery is genuinely exceptional. Here's the reality that keeps collectors awake at night. Some valuable coins remain hidden for generations because nobody recognized what they were holding. Others are accidentally spent at grocery stores every single day. The difference often comes down to knowledge. Those who know what to look for give themselves the best chance of recognizing opportunity before it disappears forever. So before you empty that coin jar into a counting machine or spend that handful of old pennies without another thought, pause for just a moment. Look closely at every 1962 Lincoln cent you own. Examine the details. Search for unusual characteristics. Compare what you find. Because history has shown that remarkable discoveries often begin with the smallest overlooked coin. And somewhere, perhaps in your own home, an ordinary-looking penny could still be waiting for someone curious enough to recognize that extraordinary stories sometimes come wrapped in just 1 cent of copper. Have you ever looked at a single penny and wondered if it could quietly be worth more than a luxury home? It sounds impossible, yet history has repeatedly surprised collectors with ordinary-looking coins that turned into extraordinary treasures. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1968 South Lincoln 1-center penny, a coin that most people overlook without a second thought. But hidden among millions of these pennies are incredibly rare examples that have stunned the coin-collecting world. Some exceptional pieces have inspired breathtaking valuations, with the finest and rarest examples reaching figures that collectors dream about, including claims of values approaching $768,000 under extraordinary circumstances. Before you spend another penny, you may want to hear the entire story. In 1968, America was changing. The nation witnessed historic moments, and millions of Lincoln cents rolled out of the San Francisco Mint carrying the small but important S mint mark beneath the date. Most entered circulation, buying cups of coffee, newspapers, and candy bars before disappearing into drawers, jars, and forgotten piggy banks. Today, many of those same coins still exist, quietly waiting to be rediscovered. But here's where things become fascinating. Not every 1968 South Lincoln center is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a small premium over face value. The real excitement begins when a coin possesses something truly special. That's where collectors become willing to pay astonishing prices. Imagine opening an old family coin jar inherited from your grandparents. You spot a reddish penny with a tiny S beneath the date. At first glance, it seems ordinary. Then you notice its incredible shine. Hardly any scratches. Sharp lettering. Every detail on Lincoln's portrait appears crisp. Suddenly, that ordinary cent deserves a closer look. Condition is one of the biggest drivers of value. Professional grading services evaluate every tiny mark, every hairline scratch, and every trace of original mint luster. The difference between an average circulated coin and a superb gem can mean the difference between a few cents and thousands of dollars. Now here's a question. How many people spend valuable coins every single day without realizing it? Probably more than anyone would like to admit. That's exactly why stories like this continue capturing headlines. Hidden treasures don't announce themselves. They simply wait for someone who knows what to look for. And speaking of knowing what to look for, the next detail changes everything. Collectors pay extraordinary attention to mint errors. Although rare, certain striking mistakes dramatically increase desirability. A strong doubled design, significant off-center strike, die cracks, clipped planchets, or other authentic mint-produced errors can transform an ordinary penny into something extraordinary. These mistakes occurred during production, making each genuine error coin unique. Even more exciting are examples displaying exceptional strike quality combined with blazing original red color. Copper naturally darkens over time. Finding a 1968 South Lincoln Center that has retained its brilliant original red appearance for decades is increasingly difficult. That combination of rarity and preservation fuels intense competition whenever one appears for sale. Think about that for a moment. A coin smaller than your thumb surviving more than half a century in nearly perfect condition. That's remarkable. But don't rush to celebrate just yet. Many online listings promise unbelievable fortunes for ordinary coins. Unfortunately, unrealistic asking prices often create confusion. Successful collectors rely on authenticated sales, professional grading, and genuine rarity rather than wishful thinking. That's why knowledge becomes your greatest investment. Here's something few beginners realize. Cleaning a coin almost always reduces its value. It may seem like common sense to polish away decades of dirt, but experienced collectors want originality, not artificial shine. One attempt to make a penny look newer can permanently erase thousands of dollars in collector appeal. It's a painful mistake. Imagine discovering a potentially valuable coin only to damage it while trying to improve its appearance. That's why patience often pays better than polishing. Now the mystery deepens. What if your 1968 South Lincoln Center appears perfect? Start by examining the surfaces under good lighting. Look for strong details in Lincoln's hair and beard. Inspect the lettering carefully. Search for unusual doubling, striking abnormalities, or evidence of a genuine mint error. If the coin appears exceptionally well preserved, consider having it evaluated by a respected professional grading service. Many remarkable discoveries have happened exactly this way. Someone simply decided to look. History reminds us that valuable coins continue surfacing in inherited collections, forgotten safety deposit boxes, estate sales, old dresser drawers, and even everyday pocket change. Every discovery begins with curiosity. Every remarkable auction begins with one collector recognizing what everyone else ignored. And that's the real lesson behind the 1968 South Lincoln 1-center penny. Its greatest value isn't found in every example. It's found in the rare combination of outstanding preservation, authentic mint characteristics, and collector demand. Those exceptional pieces become legends, inspiring stories of astonishing prices and life-changing discoveries that continue attracting collectors across America. So before you empty that change jar into a vending machine, pause for just a moment. Examine each penny carefully. That tiny S mint mark could lead you toward a fascinating piece of American history, and perhaps something far more valuable than you ever imagined. Because fortunes aren't always discovered in treasure chests. Sometimes they begin with a single forgotten penny hiding in plain sight, waiting for the one person curious enough to notice it before everyone else does. And perhaps, just perhaps, that person could be you. Have you checked the pennies hiding in your change jar lately? What if one ordinary-looking 1971 Lincoln cent has been waiting for decades to completely change someone's financial future? It sounds unbelievable, but history has shown that tiny differences on everyday coins can separate a 1-cent piece from a collectible worth thousands of dollars. And in extraordinary cases involving elite condition examples or dramatic mint errors, values can soar to astonishing levels. Before you spend another old penny without looking, stay with me, because one small detail could make all the difference. The 1971 Lincoln cent without a mint mark is one of the most overlooked coins in American pocket change. Because it carries no mint mark, it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where hundreds of millions were produced. That enormous mintage convinced most people these coins could never become valuable. After all, how could something made in such massive numbers ever become a collector's dream? That assumption is exactly why so many people stopped paying attention. Over the years, countless 1971 pennies disappeared into circulation, were damaged, lost, or simply forgotten in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. Most became worn from decades of everyday use. But a tiny fraction survived in remarkable condition, and an even smaller number display fascinating mint-made errors that collectors eagerly pursue. Here's where the story becomes exciting. Imagine two identical-looking pennies sitting side by side on a table. One buys almost nothing. The other attracts serious attention from experienced collectors. Why? Because the valuable one possesses characteristics that most people never notice. Before we reveal those details, ask yourself one question. How many old pennies have you handled without ever examining them closely? That's a thought worth remembering. The 1971 Lincoln cent features Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design created by Victor David Brenner that became one of the most recognizable coin designs in American history. On the reverse, you'll find the familiar Lincoln Memorial, representing a generation of American coinage before the design changed decades later. At first glance, every coin appears ordinary. Look closer. Collectors carefully inspect the date, the lettering, Lincoln's portrait, and every tiny feature under magnification. Even the smallest unusual characteristic can dramatically influence desirability. One of the first things experts search for is exceptional preservation. Coins that somehow escaped circulation often retain brilliant original surfaces with crisp details and attractive luster. These high-grade examples become increasingly scarce every year because time is rarely kind to copper coins. Now here's something many people never consider. A penny doesn't have to be centuries old to become valuable. It simply has to be rare in the condition collectors want. That single fact has surprised countless families who discovered forgotten coin collections inherited from parents or grandparents. But condition is only the beginning. Some 1971 Philadelphia cents were struck with unusual mint errors. Collectors search for double design elements, off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and other production mistakes that occurred during the minting process. These aren't damage caused after the coin entered circulation. They're genuine manufacturing errors that make certain coins unique. Think about that for a moment. The U.S. Mint worked to create perfect coins. Ironically, the mistakes often became the treasures. Funny how life works sometimes. We spend years trying to avoid mistakes, while collectors happily pay premiums for them. Now that's a twist nobody expected. Among the most desirable discoveries are dramatic errors that are immediately visible. The stronger and more dramatic the error, the greater the collector interest tends to become. Authentication by a respected grading service is essential because experienced buyers want confirmation that an unusual feature truly originated during the minting process. Here's where excitement often reaches another level. Professional grading doesn't simply verify authenticity. It also evaluates preservation using internationally recognized standards. Even a tiny improvement in grade can mean a significant increase in market value, especially for scarce high-grade examples. This explains why collectors handle valuable coins so carefully. One fingerprint. One scratch. One careless cleaning. Any of these can permanently reduce collector demand. If you've inherited old coins, resist the temptation to polish them until they shine. That bright appearance may look attractive, but cleaning often removes the original surfaces collectors prize the most. Now imagine discovering an untouched roll of 1971 pennies tucked inside an old desk for half a century. Would you spend them? Or would you inspect every single one? Most experienced collectors already know the answer. Stories continue to emerge about overlooked coins appearing during estate sales, garage sales, and family cleanouts. Sometimes they're found inside forgotten coffee cans. Sometimes they're hidden in old toolboxes. Sometimes they're mixed with ordinary pocket change that nobody bothered to examine. Those discoveries keep hope alive for treasure hunters across America. You may have heard sensational headlines claiming a 1971 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is worth as much as $771,000 or even millions of dollars. Claims like these usually refer to extremely rare scenarios involving extraordinary mint errors, unique circumstances, elite preservation, or exceptional auction results rather than ordinary circulated examples. Every valuable coin must ultimately be judged on its own authenticity, rarity, condition, and collector demand. That's why careful examination matters so much. The next coin you overlook could simply be another penny. Or it could become the conversation piece every collector wants to see. The difference often comes down to details smaller than the tip of a pencil. So before you empty that change jar into a vending machine, slow down. Take another look at every 1971 Lincoln cent without a mint mark you own. Study the surfaces. Look for unusual features. Preserve anything that appears different. If a coin seems exceptional, consider having it evaluated by a reputable professional. History has repeatedly rewarded patience, curiosity, and careful observation. The greatest discoveries rarely announce themselves. They wait quietly. Sometimes for decades. Perhaps the next remarkable coin isn't sitting inside a museum. Perhaps it isn't locked inside a wealthy collector's vault. Perhaps it's resting unnoticed in your own home, waiting for someone to recognize its true story before the rest of the world does. And that possibility is exactly what makes every old penny worth one more careful look. Have you checked the pennies hiding in your pocket lately? Most people toss them into jars, leave them in cup holders, or forget them between couch cushions without a second thought. But what if one ordinary-looking Lincoln cent from 1978 could be worth far more than its face value? Imagine discovering that a single penny you've ignored for decades has become the centerpiece of a collector's dream. Before you dismiss the idea, stay with me, because one tiny detail could separate a 1-cent coin from a life-changing payday. The 1978 Lincoln 1 cent with no mint mark is one of those coins that millions of Americans have handled without realizing its potential. Produced at the Philadelphia Mint, these coins were struck during a period when billions of Lincoln cents entered circulation. At first glance, nothing about the coin seems extraordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait appears on the front, while the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly on the reverse. It looks just like countless other pennies. And that's exactly why remarkable examples often remain hidden in plain sight. Here's where the story becomes fascinating. Collectors are not chasing every 1978 penny. They are searching for the rare survivors that escaped the mint with unusual characteristics or remained in astonishing condition for decades. These exceptional coins become the stars of major collections, and competition for them can become intense. Now ask yourself one simple question. How many people carefully inspect every penny before spending it? Almost nobody. That means valuable discoveries continue to happen because most coins are overlooked every single day. But don't rush to empty your piggy bank just yet. The first feature to examine is the overall condition. Professional grading services reward coins with nearly flawless surfaces, brilliant original color, and virtually no signs of circulation. A common coin in average condition may only be worth face value, while an exceptionally preserved example can attract astonishing attention from serious collectors. Then comes another level of excitement. Mint errors. These are the unexpected accidents that occur during production, transforming an ordinary coin into something collectors eagerly pursue. Look carefully for doubled lettering, off-center strikes, die cracks, die chips, broad strikes, clipped planchets, or dramatic misalignments. Even subtle abnormalities can spark enormous interest when authenticated by experts. Imagine finding one while cleaning out an old coffee can filled with change from the 1980s. Sounds unbelievable. That's exactly how many memorable discoveries begin. Now picture this. A family inherits a forgotten coin collection from a grandparent. They assume it's nothing more than sentimental keepsakes. During a closer inspection, one seemingly ordinary 1978 penny catches someone's eye because the surfaces look unusually sharp and the strike appears remarkably crisp. That single moment of curiosity leads to professional grading, and suddenly a coin that was nearly spent decades ago becomes the centerpiece of conversations across the collecting community. Stories like these continue to inspire collectors because remarkable finds often begin with ordinary circumstances. And here's something most people never think about. The Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on Lincoln cents in 1978, so the absence of a mint mark is completely normal. Ironically, what appears ordinary forces collectors to focus on the details that truly matter: preservation, striking quality, and legitimate mint errors. This is where patience becomes your greatest advantage. Instead of searching for obvious treasures, experienced collectors slow down. They use proper lighting. They examine every letter, every number, every edge, and every surface reflection. Tiny differences that others ignore can become the reason one coin stands far above millions of others. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked at a penny with a magnifying glass instead of simply spending it? Exactly. That's why opportunities still exist. Now here's the part that gets everyone's attention. Some headlines and online discussions mention extraordinary valuations approaching $778,000 for exceptionally rare, high-grade examples with remarkable characteristics that capture intense collector demand. Such numbers naturally create excitement because everyone dreams of discovering hidden wealth in everyday change. However, the reality is that values depend entirely on authenticity, condition, rarity, grading, and actual market demand at the time of sale. The highest prices are reserved for the rarest and most exceptional specimens, not for every 1978 penny found in circulation. That doesn't make the search any less exciting. In fact, it makes every discovery even more meaningful. Because you never know which coin will surprise you. Here's another surprising thought. Many valuable coins remain inside old bank rolls, inherited collections, forgotten dresser drawers, vintage wallets, and even loose change jars that haven't been opened for years. They sit quietly while their owners walk past them every day without realizing what they're holding. History has a funny sense of humor. Sometimes the smallest object in the room carries the biggest story. As interest in rare American coins continues to grow, collectors compete more aggressively for exceptional examples with original mint luster and verified mint errors. Every year, more ordinary coins disappear through circulation, damage, or neglect, making beautifully preserved survivors increasingly desirable. That's why today's forgotten penny could become tomorrow's conversation piece. But here's the cliffhanger that keeps collectors searching. Some of the most valuable discoveries weren't found by professional dealers. They were found by ordinary people who simply decided to look more closely. Maybe it was a retired schoolteacher organizing old family belongings. Maybe it was a mechanic counting change after work. Maybe it was someone just like you, curious enough to inspect one extra penny before dropping it into a cash register. The next remarkable discovery doesn't have to come from a museum or an auction house. It could come from a forgotten jar sitting on your own shelf. So before you spend another Lincoln cent without looking, remember that every coin carries a story, and every story begins with someone willing to pay attention. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that extraordinary opportunities often hide inside ordinary moments. One careful glance today could uncover the coin that everyone else overlooked, proving that sometimes the smallest piece of American history can leave the biggest impression. Have you checked the pennies hiding in your pocket lately? Most people spend them without a second thought, yet every year stories emerge of ordinary Americans discovering coins worth astonishing amounts of money. Imagine reaching into an old coffee can, a forgotten piggy bank, or your grandfather's toolbox and pulling out what appears to be a common 1979 Lincoln 1-cent penny. To almost everyone, it's worth a single cent. But to the right collector, under the right conditions, and with the right combination of rare characteristics, that tiny coin could become the centerpiece of a remarkable payday. Before you dismiss that possibility, stay with me, because one small detail could make all the difference between a penny and an unforgettable discovery. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent was produced at the Denver Mint during a time when billions of pennies entered circulation across America. At first glance, nothing about it seems extraordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait appears on the front, while the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly on the reverse. Millions of Americans handled these coins every day without realizing that hidden among the countless ordinary examples were a handful with characteristics that collectors spend years searching for. That is where the story becomes fascinating. Scarcity in coin collecting is rarely about the date alone. It is about condition, striking quality, minting errors, and demand. While most 1979 D pennies remain worth only face value, exceptional examples can command extraordinary prices because collectors compete fiercely for the finest known specimens and dramatic mint errors. Now ask yourself one question. What if one of those rare coins has been sitting unnoticed in your home for decades? That possibility has inspired countless treasure hunters to examine every penny they receive in change. Some have searched for years before finding something special. Others have stumbled upon valuable coins completely by accident. That's what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every handful of change carries the possibility of a surprise. Before you start searching, there are several features that deserve your attention. The first is overall condition. A brilliant, uncirculated 1979 D penny with virtually no wear is already more desirable than one that spent decades bouncing through cash registers. Collectors pay premiums for coins that preserve their original mint luster and sharp details. The second feature is the mint mark itself. Look closely beneath the date. The small d indicates the coin was struck in Denver. While that alone does not make the coin rare, the quality of the strike around the mint mark and lettering can reveal unusual production characteristics. Then come the mint errors. Collectors become especially excited when they encounter dramatic off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or doubled design elements. These mistakes occurred during the minting process and transformed ordinary coins into fascinating collectibles. The more dramatic and well-preserved the error, the greater the potential collector interest. Here's something many people overlook. Tiny details can create enormous differences in value. A barely noticeable doubling on the lettering, an unusual die break, or a significant strike error may completely change how specialists evaluate the coin. That is why experienced collectors examine pennies under magnification rather than relying on the naked eye. Now imagine discovering one yourself. You might laugh and think, how could one penny change anything? It's a fair question. After all, we've all tossed pennies into jars without thinking twice. But history has shown that extraordinary coins have emerged from ordinary collections, proving that remarkable discoveries sometimes hide in plain sight. As excitement builds around rare Lincoln cents, stories often circulate about examples reaching breathtaking values. Reports of exceptional coins selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or sensational claims approaching $779,000, usually involve extraordinarily rare circumstances, elite condition, unique mint errors, or highly competitive auction bidding. Those headline-making results are the exception rather than the rule, but they remind collectors why every detail matters. That brings us to an important turning point. Suppose you believe you found an unusual 1979 D penny. What should you do next? The biggest mistake would be cleaning it. Cleaning a coin can permanently damage its surface and dramatically reduce collector value. Even gentle polishing removes original metal, leaving evidence that experts immediately recognize. Ironically, what looks cleaner to the average person often appears less desirable to serious collectors. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges and store it in a protective holder. If the coin displays unusual features, consider having it authenticated and professionally graded. Independent grading provides an expert assessment of authenticity, condition, and preservation, giving buyers greater confidence should you ever decide to sell. Here's another surprising fact. Sometimes families unknowingly inherit valuable collections without realizing what they contain. Old cigar boxes, desk drawers, inherited albums, and forgotten jars have all produced remarkable discoveries. Many people search flea markets and estate sales hoping to uncover coins overlooked for generations. Could your family already own one? That question alone has motivated thousands of collectors to begin searching today instead of tomorrow. The beauty of this hobby is that it combines history, detective work, and the thrill of discovery. Every coin carries a story from the year it was made. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent represents a moment in American history, passing through countless hands while quietly waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. And that curiosity could reward patience. Maybe your search ends with nothing more than ordinary pocket change. Maybe you gain a fascinating new hobby that connects you with American history. Or maybe one overlooked penny reveals characteristics that place it among the most desirable examples known to collectors. Nobody can predict where the next remarkable discovery will happen. It could appear in a forgotten coin jar. It could emerge from an inherited collection. It could even arrive in your pocket as change after your next trip to the grocery store. That's why experienced collectors never underestimate an ordinary-looking Lincoln cent. Because sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise. So before another 1979 D. Lincoln penny slips through your fingers unnoticed, take a closer look. Examine the date. Study the mint mark. Search for unusual errors. Protect anything that appears different. One careful inspection could transform an ordinary moment into an extraordinary story, reminding us that hidden treasures are often found not by the luckiest people, but by those willing to slow down, pay attention, and recognize opportunity when everyone else sees only a single penny.